We do this not for the career. We do this for the moments. A lot of us do, at least. When we get to a point, we're only doing it for the moments. What are the moments? The white coat ceremony, right? First day of clinicals, everyone makes a big deal about it. First day on the rotation, everyone makes a big deal about it. But what are you doing in between those moments? Crying nonstop, right? But no one talks about that. What's another moment? First to fourth year, you're finally free. No, you're not. You're still doing away rotation. You're still working. You're still interviewing. You're still stressed. But then what happens? Match state envelope. That is an amazing, significant moment. That is a powerful moment, of course. It's a moment I would have loved to experience, of course. But I also realize it's merely just a moment because what led up to that? And then what comes after that?
This episode of Be Empowered does come with a trigger warning. We're going to be talking about depression, suicidality, self harm, and other mental health topics. If you or someone you know is struggling with this, please know that you're not alone. In the United States, and 988 is the crisis helpline. We're also going to put some resources specific for healthcare workers in our caption. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Now, on to the episode. How did you deal with like the financial aspect of it all? Because I
Ah,
think that's the one thing that keeps people stuck, unfortunately.
yes. The big question, the big question. I know. So I'm going to answer this in a very useless way. Obviously, I'm going to explain it. I don't care. I just didn't care. That's my answer. I don't care. I just don't care. What do I mean by that? I do not come from a rich background. As I mentioned, my family, immigrated here. My sisters came here. I was born here. Growing up, combined income family of five, no more than $35,000 a year. Of course, I understand that. I went through 3 months growing up when my mom lost her job, where all we can afford to eat were pancakes, rice, and beans. I understand. I understand all the financial worries. I understand taking the loans, but also when I started taking loans in college, we knew like we couldn't afford to pay anything. It's not through any fault of my parents. Of course, my parents wish they could, but they couldn't. So I had to just really be so stoic and say, I mean, I needed loans anyway, so I can't care because I'm going to do that no matter what, right? But then what happens when you're faced with that decision? Of course, looking back, of course, so many times I knew actively I was lying to myself because I knew the fear was the debt, right? Of course, I knew if I leave, I am stuck with this debt forever. But then you get so much to a point where you just don't care. I was so cornered. I was so, because again, like I did, to be so frank, no one can tell me anything. No one can tell me anything. No one can argue against me. No one can tell me I don't understand because I understand all of it. Because I promise you, I did every single thing you can ever think of and more. I clawed my way to get into this position. I did everything to get into medical school and more. I even cussed in my med school interview. I showed in my med school interview my drag strip performance. I sang in my med school interview and I got accepted early acceptance to that same school because I did everything to make my point clear that this was the right role for me. So it's my decision to own. And also, I was so cornered and I had to face all that all I had to say is, I just don't care. Why? Because I thought I would much rather spend the rest of my life paying the most minimum amount perpetually up until the day I die. If it means to be happy, if it means to be free, if it means to be able to do literally whatever I want, if it means that I can control my schedule, if it means that no one can tell me I have to work more but still get paid less, if it means that no one can tell me I'm stupid for just, God forbid, thinking and trying, if it means that I can live with my family, if it means that I can enjoy experiences and not feel like a total piece of shit for caring about myself, as opposed to paying off the debt, as opposed to committing to a journey that I knew was no longer meant for me. And for what? For these little moments? Because why do we do this? We do this not for the career, we do this for the moments. A lot of us do, at least. When we get to a point, we're only doing it for the moments. What are the moments? The white coat ceremony, right? First day of clinicals, everyone makes a big deal about it. First day on the rotation, everyone makes a big deal about it. But what are you doing in between those moments? Crying nonstop, right? But no one talks about that. What's another moment? First to fourth year, you're finally free. No, you're not. You're still doing away rotation. You're still working. You're still interviewing. You're still stressed. But then what happens? Match state envelope. That is an amazing, significant moment. That is a powerful moment, of course. It's a moment I would have loved to experience, of course. But I also realize it's merely just a moment because what led up to that? And then what comes after that? Residency, right? And then that's it. There are no more moments left. And I realized I don't need moments. I need a life. I don't need happy Instagram pictures. I don't need happy TikToks. I need to just live my life finally. And I gave this system everything and it gave me nothing in return. That's fine. I'm just going to take what I paid for and continue on with myself. So if you're answering, if the question is, Javi, how do I want to quit, but the loans, let me tell you this, it's fine. You're only scared about the loans because it's a fear. And I'm saying this as someone who's processed my own journey. And I'm approaching this in a way that I know subconsciously I took it. So this doesn't apply to everyone. But for me, the loan was such a fear because it was always dangled in front of me saying, if you quit, this is your consequence. And if you quit, your consequence will lead you to this. They never said, hey, that's okay. That's okay. But you can work through it together. Why is so what is so wrong about that, right? But anyway, if I were to tell a student, it's gonna be hard at first, but I promise you, you're gonna stop caring right away. You're gonna get paid. And also I'm like, look, the way things are going, I doubt that's even gonna last long anyway. So but yeah, it really just came down to me just assessing what did I value at the moment and what did I want then. But
You put it in a really nice way, The unfortunately, it doesn't even end after medical school. The moments actually get less and less, and or those moments that you brought up, because residency is even tougher, much tougher than even medical school.
mm,
And unfortunately, some of these, toxic workplaces, or the toxicity or lack of flexibility, lack of autonomy, doesn't stop when you become an attending. Especially, even I'm not sure what year was it that you stopped medical school.
so it was my third year in 2023.
2023, yeah. So, again, things are not getting better in terms of, attendings, having those moments of helping people, and having joy in their job, and going into this for those reasons. It's
Mm.
just, it doesn't, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist at all, but it's not as it was painted, or it's not what we expected it to be. Still find joy in some aspects of it, but unfortunately those moments are becoming less and less. And
Yeah.
I talk to many physicians feeling the same way, feeling the burnout, feeling that they're sacrificing really their personal life over medicine. So, you put it in a very good way, that the loans shouldn't be the reason why you choose not quit medicine if it's not the right thing for you.
Like the way, and I think things in like kind of an if or then scenarios because it's not to again never to make an argument, but rather hold up a mirror to one scenario and how it can be reflected in another one, right? Because here's how I kind of think of it. If let's say someone were to want to make this decision and they wanted to compare what happiness can look like staying in one versus leaving, right? So I think of it this way. I think of my friends who are currently residents right now, and I can see again who's happier. I wasn't happy when I had my white coat. I wasn't happy when I had my stethoscope. You look at my pictures in third year. Not only do I look uglier than I already do right now, but you can tell I wasn't happy. Right now, I don't care how I look like. I'll tell you, no, I'm so happy. Like, because I live next to a river. I live in a beautiful area. I have all the freedom, and I also earn more than I would as a resident. I work less. I have so much autonomy and freedom. So I can confidently say, yes, I failed at medical school. Of course, I couldn't handle it. I will say it so proudly. I couldn't handle it. I failed at it, and I wasn't strong enough for it. And that's okay because I'm happy. And to me, no loans, no agency can ever rip that away from me. And I would never let a white coat take that from me. But to your point, however, I still think it's possible to live a fulfilling life as a physician. I do think it's possible to live a fun, an awesome and rewarding life as a physician because I've met those physicians who have their families, who have their awesome lives that I worked for this interventional cardiologist, probably the most work-wise taxing ones of all, and again, and I say that in terms of like just physical hours, not in terms of actual substance, because I do personally think family medicine physicians are overworked more than all, but that's my take. But this guy loved his job. This guy would lead cath lab. I'm like, that guy is on it. He is high 24/7, and he loves his family too. So it's possible. But I think it really just comes down to what are you willing to sacrifice versus what do you truly value? And I just think, as you phrase it, we're not even told what that sacrifice can look like because we are sold something, right? It's an idea, it's a dream. It's literally a dream. We're sold this idea and we're like, how much? I don't care. I don't care. I will pay for it. You tell me. But then what we buy is actually not what we were sold. And that's no fault of you or anyone else or myself because we went in with the right intentions. It's just very unfortunate that we never were actually even allowed to see what the actual product was. But anyway, I didn't mean to digress.
No, those are all really good points. And I think to what you said, what is worth your happiness, right? I
Yeah,
mean, do you really want to feel imprisoned, basically? Because ultimately working through the system until you get to become an attending, and even then you'll have even more loans at that point to pay off. So you're even more stuck, right? Of course you're going to be making more money, but your work life balance might be affected if you really are trying to live that life
sure.
that you should in your 30s. Shala and I talked about this because, yes, you start making more money, but you also have more expenditures with kids and families and homes. And like you want a vacation, you want to do XYZ, and you still have to pay off your loans. So it doesn't end when you're an attending. A lot of people can't just get away with doing 40 hours a week, like a regular work week, if you're really
Yeah,
trying to keep up with what a normal person your age is trying to do. Shala and I are both independent contractors. We work locums 1099 contracts. So we've been able to do that work life
good.
balance. And for me, I was in academics before, and I've told you I left because I was feeling some of the same feelings you were feeling as well. Like this isn't worth it, to a point where I'm like, I'll take less money and less prestige as long as I can spend time with my family. And I don't have to take call like every other week, and I don't have to work weekends. I'm okay with all of that. So saying all this to say, I feel like just making that transition has helped my mental health a lot more. Do you
Good.
feel like transitioning out of medicine? Where do you feel you are right now in terms of your mental health? Like better than before, or or still a work in progress?
Yeah, no, and well, first, thank you. Oh, wait, thank you both for sharing your experiences and your feedback. Because, like, as I share this, like, I understand, your position as well, and I understand maybe how you might even be receiving some of this yourself, right? So, I appreciate you kind of trusting my content and kind of sharing your own as well. So to answer your question, like, so how, like, where am I in my mental health? Like, plainly put, I'm literally at peace. I just feel the most peaceful I've ever been. And I'm not saying this as hyperbole. It is like it's weird, when you finally truly step back, you can truly like step back in terms of like, I can see my journey as a mirror and I can now see what happened. Because what was the question I asked myself? Why me? Why did this happen to me? It wasn't supposed to be me. Because what do we always say? It's not going to be me. And it was me, right? But as I kind of reflected the last few years and going through everything, it's just been a stepwise process of letting go little by little. One of it was, you know, I never allowed myself to grieve. I never allowed myself to mourn what happened because I had to get to work right away, right? It wasn't until we'll say like maybe November, December of 2024. Mind you, I was in a very bad spot. um, and my spot was, to give you an example, I was in such a bad spot mentally because I don't know what was going on in my brain. I wasn't sleeping. I was not taking care of myself at all. I was facing eviction twice. And I was so afraid to go into my kitchen because I was afraid of the maggots that were going to fall. And this is because I opened up like my thoughts to what had happened prior. So I had to process it, right? Even then, I would tell you I was still happier than I was in medical school. But it was when I allowed myself to mourn myself, which really was just complaining, like actually whine about it. Because yes, it hurt. It hurts so much. So of course I wanted to tell someone. And so, when I found a medium to do that through, I just let it out and that helped the healing. Another part of it for me was, symbolically on social media. I removed the word medicine, medical school, or any of that from my bios because I couldn't allow that to be my identity anymore. I couldn't allow that to be how the world perceived me anymore. But I still held on to something, which was weird. I didn't know what though. And it really wasn't until last week when I was in my job. So, my job as a behavioral professional, I was in CPR first aid training last week. And you're seeing these videos, talking about, like, let's say a brain injury and TBI, right? And the most, fundamental elementary physiology behind it, right? What do I start doing? I start trying to remember. I start trying to think, connect dots. I try to remember the path of physiology. But then I start thinking, why am I doing that? Like, why do I still care? And I realized, what I'm holding on to the actual knowledge, like the volume, because as a medical student, that is, or as a physician, that's the one thing we truly own is the volume of information we know that no one else will know or understand, right? It's like this little secret, right? This little magic thing. I akin it to your Harry Potter wand, um, because it's so different. But I thought, well, that is no longer some badge of honor. It's just a paperweight to me. So I consciously let myself, I am fine forgetting everything I learned. Control Alt Delete. I don't want to know it. Only what I need for my job now. And now I can tell you, with the work setting I'm in, where everyone is jokingly very jaded like me. So we talk about mental health. We make our mental health jokes. We all have our diagnoses. I work with a patient population that is ignored and just outcasted, right? Just shunned. And I work in a setting where I can actually affect actual positive change to their day-to-day lives. What does that mean? When we apply to medical school, why do we apply? We want to help people. We want to make a difference, right? Of course, you're going to have the weird personalities that want some sort of power trip. But for those of us who go in for the right reasons, it's because we want to just help. And we think that this is the right way to do that. And I think that is one of the problems. We're never even allowed to opine on what other methods could we do what we want to do. Because I would assume when we apply to medical school, we're not applying because we're like, oh, hell yeah, I love ordering labs. Nothing makes me happier than being on call. And boy, do I love taking physical exams at 5 in the morning when the patient hates me. Of course, we don't apply for that. We apply for, as we talked about, those beautiful moments, right? Being able to make those change. But but that's not the job though. The job is not that. The job is not this everyday hands-on actually affecting change, at least through my perspective. Now I'm in a job where not only am I looked up to, not that I care about that, but I have the autonomy, but also there's an end goal to this. I'm not just gonna, hey, here's a prescription and I wish you the best. No, it's like, no, I'm gonna make sure you get the fuck out of here because you need to have a little better life. And then considering that, also the fact that no one monitors my time, my work emphasizes if you even work a second after, you better tell us because you have the benefits to make that worth your while. I get paid a lot more and I could do what I want. So it's not that I'm happy because happiness is merely, emotions are cyclical, right? I'm going to be sad tomorrow. But in terms of me being at peace, I finally have it. And I say that because it's something I've always wanted. My personal life, it is what it is, but I've always just wanted peace. And I think I can confidently say that I have it now. And it's just, it's like I don't say these things to ever be negative, but I think the reality is that we have to not just acknowledge the negative, we have to name it, we have to embrace it so we can make informed decisions, right? Like that's all this is. The reason you're feeling what you're feeling with what I'm saying is not because you made a stupid choice. It's because you weren't told all the information. Like, what do we do when we ask a physician, hey, should I go to medical school? Right? We're shadowing. And you're gonna tell people, you're gonna see the same answers. Oh yeah, I love it. But then what are you gonna hear? The physicians that say, don't do it. And we think that's funny, right? We like, oh, he's just being funny. Or, or we hear like, yeah, no, there are better ways to make money. And we hear the physician and she's just like, oh, like, yeah, she's just saying that. No, there's a reason they're saying that. But what's the problem there still? They're not telling you what they want to say because they know if they say it, then they have to come to terms with it. The physician who tells you don't do it is telling you, don't do it because honestly, I just hate my life. I thought it was going to be so fun and so beautiful. And I just started hating everything. I realized as I was going through it, I'm actually not helping people. I'm just giving a piece of paper. And I'm telling you, don't do it because honestly, I'm just trapped and I just don't care anymore to get out of it. And that's it. Or you have the physician who tells you there are better ways to make money. She means that because she's saying, I work 80 hours this week. I can't even spend the money that I make. So why do I want the money if then it's not the money? And then my last part to this answer is this one, like, what do we say? You know, if I ask you why are you a physician, and anyone can say because I want to help people. Okay, why do you want to help people? Well, because when I was a kid, my grandmother had cancer. Okay, and what about that? Well, my grandmother had cancer, and the physician, they were very so kind, right? They made me feel heard. I was so scared. They made me feel part of it. I was so scared, but they made my grandmother feel safe. And I want to be like that. To which I'd be like, that's so awesome. But nowhere in there did they talk about the medicine, right? They talked about the human connection. They talked about the emotional, psychological, spiritual impact, right? Which, you're nodding your head because you're like, yeah, that's why we apply. But that's not what the job description is. But we're told that the only way you can do that is as a physician. We're not told you can do it as a nurse. We're not told you can do it as a CNA. We're not told you can do it as a respiratory tech. When I even applied to medical school, I told an interviewer, I think the janitor is the most important role in the hospital because the physician's not going to clean the surgery room. The nurse ain't going to do it. It's the janitor. To which I ask, anyone this question, or, think of it this way. Let's say you want a job that you help people, right? And that's it. I just want to help people. Okay, cool. Let's say you lose your arms. Let's say you lose everything. You lose every penny and you can do nothing else in your world except work at a 7-Eleven gas station. But you want to help people. I would say, can you no longer help people anymore? Or what are some ways you can still help people in this position? Because there are meaningful ways. You can come to the person to the cash register that looks down and say, hey, I like your shoes. That's it. You just have to be present. You just have to acknowledge the world around you because there's so many ways you can help people. And if you're thinking about quitting, and if you want to ask me more questions, of course, but if you're thinking about quitting and you don't know how that looks like, understand you have inherent value. Your inherent value does not come from a position or a white coat that has absolutely no inherent value at all. You can do what you want to do. You just have to give yourself permission to do so.
Do you have any advice for someone in the position or any final thoughts to close this out?
Or what I tell someone right now in this position. So first, I'm going to give you what I would have answered, and I'll explain why. Had you asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have answered this way. I would have said something like, you know, obviously the validating stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd be like, no, like, first allow yourself time to just acknowledge yourself now. Like, just see where am I at in my position right now? What led me to this role, to this exact spot that I'm at? And considering where I'm at now, not where you were before, where you're at now, what do you want? And then just evaluate. You don't have to make a decision. It's just evaluate. If I choose staying, what does a positive look like? What does a negative look like? And weigh those out. And if I choose to leave, what does a positive look like? What does a negative look like? And then weigh those out. Knowing that whatever you decide is the right decision if you're fine with the negatives. And if you can say that, you're going to be fine. But that's what I would have said 6 months ago. What I would say today is just quit. And I know that's a very stark answer, but I say that as someone who has spent years trying to get in, who has spent years helping people get in, and who has spent years thinking, why was I allowed to just leave? Why was I just thrown away and replaced? And I say that because it's not that quit if you are in medical school. It's not quit if you are a physician. It's if you are at this point of consideration despite everything else, then it's an obvious sign to quit because it's just going to get harder to do that. It's just going to get worse for you as you go forward. And the process to heal is going to take longer. And if you're like, how do I quit? I would say, honestly, sometimes if you just pull the band-aid. Obviously, don't do it that way fully, but what I say in that regard, because it's like you're never gonna find a reason to stay. You're gonna find reasons to lie to yourself. That's all this is. We just keep justifying things as we progress. And I say that not as something negative, but really with the intention of hope, because no one tells us this stuff. And I'm telling this because I truly wish I would have been told it this way. So I could have been made a better and more informed decision. And again, I don't regret anything. I love it. I made the best friends in the world, the best physicians in the world, the best stories in the world, the best parties, the best nights out, the best memories. I have so many Snapchats to look back on. I had a great TikTok run. I was just so happy and everything. And I'm happy that it happened. I'm really happy that it happened because where I'm at right now is really what I wanted. It's really what I truly wanted without even realizing it. And I'm really happy that it happened this way. I really wouldn't want it any other way, honestly, because it was a fun way. And I really hope the reason I am happy it happened this way is because I know I'm fine talking about it. And I want people to hear it because I know there's people who are like me who just need someone to tell them that it's okay. And that's just why I'm saying it. So
And this was very, very informative. I'm hopeful that some medical students can listen to this and understand that if they're feeling this way, they're not alone. You know, mental sanity and joy is the most important thing that everyone it should be a priority for everyone.
mhm.
As you said, where people can find you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a TikTok. My Instagram is such a dud, so don't even waste your time there. But my TikTok is at Javi from TikTok. So my name Javi and from TikTok. And yeah, I mean, I've been making to make a Substack because I think there's things I want to talk about. So follow my link in my bio, whatever. But that's really where you can find me. And if anyone ever wants to email me, like I am very receptive as well. So it's my name, Javi Ochoa, Javi Ochoa 2025 at gmail.com. And yeah, I mean, if anyone ever wants to talk, like I am a big believer. I hate texting, I hate messaging. So message me. And I'm down to always have a video call with someone. Like obviously I don't charge or anything. It's just, hey, sometimes you want to connect. You don't know how else to connect. I am always bored. So I love connecting.
Thank you so much for everything, for all you said, and for being on this podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Be Empowered, the podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear this. Stay strong, stay empowered, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.